Bermuda is an isolated island. It's 1,671 kilometers from its nearest other landmass, which is South Carolina. Formed 150 million years ago by a volcano erupting from the mid-Atlantic ridge, the volcano gradually weathered and fell below the ocean's surface. Coral reefs soon grew on the submerged island, and what we stand on today is an island made of coral, which is compacted into a limestone. The original flora, prior to the colonial era, that inhabited Bermuda consisted of species that rode the ocean's currents and landed ashore, were carried to the island by birds in their stomachs or attached to their feathers. Seeds were also carried in the air. Many species have been introduced to Bermuda since Europeans first sighted the island, some with drastic consequences. Bermuda is surrounded by shallow seas, with reefs and tropical fish. The limestone of Bermuda is porous and very sharp, and it weathers easily. Plants that require alkaline conditions thrive in this environment. You won't see entire groups of plants such as ericaceae here, as they need acidic conditions. There are 3 types of mangroves in the Americas. The white mangrove is furthest inland. You would be forgiven for not recognizing it as a mangrove. The black mangrove is slightly back from the shore, and its roots protrude upwards from the mud and other substrate, and they absorb oxygen from the air. What we can see here is the red mangrove. This is the species most often associated with coastlines and is the plant that grows furthest out into the ocean from the shoreline. There are small herbs that grow on the shores and on the rocks around the shorelines. These plants are specifically adapted to these conditions and are mostly epiphytic. That means growing on rocks. Paritaria floridana is native to Bermuda and is a member of the nettle family of plants. Tournefortia nephaloides is commonly called the sea lavender, and it's native to Bermuda. It's also found in Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, Colombia, and Venezuela, always as a coastal plant. It can grow as high as 2 meters tall, and its flowers are visited by bees and butterflies. Paritaria floribunda is found along the coast of the Caribbean, South and Central America, and from the 3 southeastern states of the United States of America. It's considered a weed over most of its range. However, it is a key plant that supports the red admiral butterfly. I'm here with another interesting species that's native to Bermuda. It's not endemic, but it is still an important one, particularly on the seasides and on the limestone rocky places. I'm here on the North Shore, and this is a euphorbia species that they've got here in Bermuda. There are other euphorbias found here, but this one's native. And this one's interesting. Look at the stem formations. It's beautiful. And this is one I just don't see in cultivation. And well, the name, here you go, here's the name. And I can't pronounce it. Commonly called the seaside tansy, and is even cultivated in some countries and places. This species is found throughout the southeastern United States, Bermuda, and the Caribbean. It is an important plant for butterflies and is said to even have medicinal qualities. This iconic species has made a remarkable comeback with the help of the people that live in Bermuda. This endemic species was threatened with extinction until recently. One of the 15 species within the sable genus, it's actually become naturalized and is even an invasive plant species in the Leeward Islands. Plants can attain heights of 25 meters, but they are usually much less. The trunks can have a diameter of 55 centimeters, but again, much less. Plants are said to live to be about 200 years old.
I'm standing here in front of one of the more impressive trees that you get in Bermuda. This is the sea grape. Something you'll see if you're further south in the Bahamas, Turks, Caicos, and down into the Caribbean. Sea grape. They do have pretty epic looking flowers that come out from the end of the stems. They do grow big and they can go quite scrubby. This is quite a good specimen of it. Next to it is one of the iconic species of Bermuda. We got here the tree that almost extinct and still listed as critically endangered and only found in Bermuda. It's endemic, the cedar. It's good to see these things around. Unfortunately, there's a pepper tree right there in the middle of two native species, and pepper, of course, not being native at all, and something that people are working hard to get rid of. What we've got here is we've got another invasive species, very similar looking to the Bermuda palm, and this is the Chinese windmill palm. Yeah, so we can see that that's just a standard windmill palm. You know, eventually over time, these things will be taken care of and replaced with plants that are native to Bermuda. Now that takes time. Also, you can't just take things out like that. What happens with erosion and, you know, where the birds nest, all those sorts of things have to be taken into consideration when you're looking at rewilding. Another plant that is, I've seen this feral in more places than just Bermuda, you know, even back in Australia. This thing here, they call it asparagus fern or something fern, but it's not a fern, of course. It is an asparagus. It's part of that family. Some red berries on them. They're prolific and they just take over. Of course, they're spiny to touch as well, and they do just have a tendency in other countries just to take over. A problem here. Another problem plant that we get in Bermuda is something that's more unlikely and something that will probably be quite popular with the houseplant trade. And you can see it behind me. I mean, you know, those aroid houseplant people, they love their variegated plants, don't they? So that sort of thing here, let's go and have a closer look. It's got, well, it hasn't got horticultural value. I mean, these things are just growing everywhere. And in fact, there's actually nothing special about variegation on most of these philodendrons. People just pay an absolute fortune for them. Actually getting ripped off in the process, because if they only knew how easy it is to actually produce this, just grow them in brighter light, etc., eventually it will happen. And you can see, just walking through all these variegated, you know what, my aroid knowledge isn't good enough to know if that's a monstera or whatever it is. It's certainly never going in my greenhouse, let me tell you that, or anything that looks like it. In my opinion, people spend fortunes on this stuff, like that domesticum variegated or Thai constellation or whatever they're called these days. Like it's virus. It's actually atrocious. It's ugly. And people still pay money for it. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Anyway, let's go back to looking at some delightful plants of Bermuda. It's very similar to one of the endemics that we get here. There's one species of daisy, Darrell's fleabane, I think they call it, and that's endemic. It is very similar to a couple of other species. I don't know how to tell them apart. So on these here, you can see if this looks like a letter C, it's a Chinese windmill palm. So in the Livingstonia genus, the Livingstonia chinensis to be exact. If that looks like a V, that would be a Bermuda palm. So you can see here the Bermuda palms that these have been planted here, and to recreate the old palm forest, you know, the cedars, these guys here, form the major trees within in the forest here. You can tell a Bermuda palm from others because the easiest way is the yellow that's here. Of course, there are other more scientific ways of being able to tell the difference between them, but that's the best for those of us that are either horticulturalists or not professionally trained. This Bermudian form of Pilea microphylla is much smaller than others that you'll see. This species is pan-global, found over most of the tropics in seasonally dry areas, but this clone is much smaller. Over the wall near the General Hospital in central Bermuda, find another microspecies. Again, you don't see this one around as much as we should in cultivation. Begonia willickiana from Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and Belize, and seasonally dry areas as well. It's a lithophyte found growing on rocky walls like this. This is growing amongst cement. It's an epic little thing. Those leaves are about the size of my thumb, or about half the size of my thumb, really. here is a personal favourite of mine, olive wood, epic plant. It's endangered and it's endemic to Bermuda and was once found a lot over the island and now confined natively over just a few areas. And I've seen it up at Spittle Pond, of course, Trunk Island project, but this is beautiful. We've started seeing them come back very, very slowly, not quite like we have with other species, but it still requires maintenance and care to make sure the invasive species don't take over. But beautiful, and it's so nice to see them, in my opinion. I love this country. Not just good people, but good plants.